What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the Sibling Duo podcast. I'm Daniel.
I'm Tiffany.
And I'm their mom.
All right, everybody. We are in the final week of school, and what better way to finish out the year than to bring the most special guest we can find to the podcast for the first time, our mom.
Thank you. I have loved watching them, so it's super special to now join you.
So this podcast, we talk a lot about our life, which high school for Tiffany, college for me, what we're learning, all sorts of things like that. So take us back to your high school and college days. What was that like for you? What are some things you learned? And just tell us a little about your late teenage years.
Wow. Okay. I think it's interesting looking back because you think you're getting so old, but you're still so young. You know, like when you hit 18 or you graduate from college and, you're living on your own for the first time, all that. Even just when you're in college and you're like, you have that realization, like, I can do whatever I want right now. Like, I can go to the mall if I want to. I can hop a bus and go to Walmart. I can skip a class. Like, I can choose where I want to eat, whatever it might be. Like, you have those, like, that full, you don't have to answer to somebody anymore. You don't have to, like, not in a bad way, just like, you're not having to make those decisions with someone. You're fully just responsible for yourself, and you can decide if you want to eat with a friend that day or you just want to be by yourself, and kind of have that responsibility. And so you feel so old, but then now, like, looking back, it's like you're still so young. And I think I was just telling you, Tiffany, something, I can't remember exactly what it was, but just like, I wish I had that perspective, like this perspective I have now back then. But that only comes
really
with time, right? So
that's tough, yeah.
That was kind of general, but I don't know if you have something more specific, but just the reality of, like, I still feel really young.
Yeah.
But then I look back and I was like, wow, I was really young and I really didn't know that much. But at the time, sometimes you're like feeling like you're really growing up, which you are.
Yeah.
But you are always growing up. Like, every year you continue to grow up.
Yeah. So, since you're like pretty involved with us, what do you think from your high school to like now, how the world is now, and like how our experience of it has been? Like, what do you think has like changed? What's different from like your high school to our high school experience?
Well, some of the fashion is coming back, so that's always interesting. And I was like, man, I should have just hung on to that stuff because I'd look great again. And it would be like real vintage, not, like thrifted vintage. It would be my own vintage.
That's true.
I mean, the obvious is the social media piece. Back then, we had a computer. I typed papers on a computer, and in college, like, IM started. So, like, we would be working, writing a paper, and we'd have that little box on the corner of our screen, and a little message would pop up from a friend. And so you'd message them back. So it was kind of just the very beginning of that type of communication. But it wasn't with you all the time because we didn't have an iPhone, where you're like being able to, like, we can track each other now.
Yeah.
We can have every way to reach each other, phone, texting. And then, like, I'll never forget you, Daniel, like, you had gotten to college and you needed to reach me for something, and I wasn't responding to, like, your text, and I'm in the middle of a lab, and all of a sudden my, like, emergency alarm goes off because you're able to, like, notify me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's an emergency, guys.
Yes. No, it's so true. That's such a good point. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think there's so much that's very similar, learning how to drive and driving on your own and hanging out with friends, and all of that is very similar. The whole, like, social piece of kind of figuring out who you are and figuring out who you want to invest in and who are people that are good friends to have and good influences, and those that maybe aren't leading you down a good path. And so all of that kind of like big picture stuff is the same, but I feel like the just the fastness of social media in terms of all of that. And so to share a little story, I think your dad actually recognized that. So I think before we met, he had been like he had like met some girl, and they had started like texting, and like he realized how quickly or IMing, something like that,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
they had. And like he realized how quickly like he got to know her and hadn't even like really met her yet or something like that. And so when we met and then started interacting, he was very
Interacting.
yeah, like he was very um disciplined and wise to say like, let's just kind of like write letters to start with, and then like we kind of progressed to emails, and then we would talk on the phone like once a week or something like that. But it kind of like slowed the pace of all of that down, where like I see like right now how you go from like 0 to 100 in a relationship, even just with a friend,
Hmm.
so quickly. And so I feel like that's a big change.
Oh yeah, that's huge. I can't imagine.
I will like say submission of assignments was very different than how you guys do it. Like everything you do, it seems like is uploaded online. In high school, I have so many vivid memories of like the morning of a paper being due. I've like stayed up all night. My mom was amazing. About like 1 a.m. usually she'd be like, she was a night owl, she'd be starting to wind down. So I'd smell her making me scrambled eggs and toast and slices of banana, and she would
Oh,
bring that to me
that's
as
awesome.
my like midnight snack to get me through the night, and then she'd go on up and go to bed.
Aw.
And then the house would be quiet, and I'd finish my paper, like just in time to go like change for school. But
Mom.
I know. I was a
Dang.
night owl. I did my stuff at night sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I worked well with that pressure, you
Yeah.
know? There's definitely times where I planned ahead and I did it, but there's other times that I did not, like on the really big term papers or whatever. So, but you're like back then, how we printed it wasn't like individual pieces of 8.5 by 11 paper. It was like on a ream,
Mhm.
and it was perforated per page. After it printed, then you'd rip it, but then on the sides it had little, it was again perforated with little
Yeah.
holes, and those holes would go into the printer, and then the printer would like pull it through, like the old like pulley system or whatever,
Yeah.
like little notches. Well, it was like the most stressful. Like, is this thing going to print? Am I going to have a printer issue? And then the printer would jam, or if you didn't line up the paper right on the notches, if you had one off, then the whole thing's cockeyed. And there
Oh
was
no.
no special effects. Like, you didn't really like change your font or like all the cool things you can do in the programs now. That was
Yeah.
definitely not there. It was just like one standard thing, and it was always stressful. And because if you didn't bring it to school, you didn't get credit for it, and
Yeah.
so I think just like the submission stuff is different, um, and the technology is so much better to be able to do all the other things that you're able to do.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy. So you touched on it a second ago. When you talk about like social aspect of this time in your life, but what was like your like peer group like, or your friend group like, and how did that change or stay the same as you went from high school to college and then into the adult like workforce?
Okay, so in high school, I went to a small high school, like 50 kids in my graduating class. Um, there was definitely like groups within it, like any place, with, kind of like the artsy crowd or the sports crowd or like the cool crowd, different things. And I honestly fit in with so many of them that I had friends in different groups. I really didn't like, I wasn't like I think because I did sports with different ones of them and were friends with them in different ways, it wasn't like I stuck with one group. And then I had a lot of friends in other grades as well. And so, like, you've met some of them, like Janet.
Yeah.
So I feel like I wasn't part of one of the cliques, and I was kind of enjoyed that because I felt accepted by a lot of different people, whereas I feel like there was definitely some people that just kind of stayed with their little group,
Yeah.
and they probably appeared cliquish even though they probably didn't mean to be, but they maybe gave
Sure.
off that vibe.
Absolutely.
But moving then into college, my friends, well, it's kind of the first people that you meet, but then that kind of morphs and changes. And so my closest friends were people that I did field hockey with and that was in nursing with when it kind of all boiled down to
Yeah.
who I ended up getting really close to. And so, two of them I still stay in contact with, and we've been able to get back into better contact through Marco Polo, which has really been fun.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think for that, like Jen, I would say my friend Jen, I feel like we had just like a lot of things in common and just like clicked from the beginning. Like we met freshman year, we had chemistry together. So in the mornings, I would pass her dorm to get to on my way to chemistry. So I'd stop and she'd wait outside for me and then we'd walk to chemistry together.
That's awesome.
And then my other two really good friends were Jess and Christy. And then my roommate that I had, Kristen, for 3 years, who introduced me to Josh. So she was music major, and we didn't have like similar friend groups or anything like that, but we lived together for 3 years. So,
Sweet.
um, yeah, those were kind of my people. And there's a lot of other people that I was like friends with, but those were kind of my core people.
That's sweet.
Wait, so did you guys all like hang out together or were you separately? Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so like Jess kind of had a group of friends and her roommates, and then Jen, same thing. And then Kristen had like her group of friends. So there was times when like Jen, Jess, Christy, and I, and some like there was a few others all kind of hung out.
Okay.
But it was kind of like of these different groups of friends, those were my closest, and then sometimes we would be kind of a group or whatever.
Cool.
Jen, Jess, and Christy. So but we also all three played field hockey together. So like we would travel together, we'd practice together. We had that in common. So
And
and then
guys, she was a beast.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Guys, do you want to explain your successes?
um
Okay, I have a
no.
little. Recently, we found
Oh boy.
in a scrapbook a newspaper clipping about it, and all right, here we go. Ready? Once again, the answer came off the stick of yours truly, right there. They were what champ? Do you want to explain the championship that you guys won?
Sure. So I played club field hockey and we traveled like to different states around the area to compete. And then there was like a national championship, and it was actually hosted at our school. Um, and I ended up,
Scored the winning points.
yeah, the two goals that we had, I got to score, and it was pretty cool. Like I had wanted to play varsity field hockey in college, and I had gotten recruited to Boston College, and I ended up choosing not to go there. I ended up choosing to go to James Madison. I wanted to go there. And just, I didn't feel like BC was the right fit for me. I mean, it had field hockey, it had nursing, but I really wanted to go to a different part of the country, and I didn't want to stay right in Boston. And so that was a big draw. BC is way more expensive. That was another reason. And I was really happy with my choice. but I was not able to play field hockey there. I did try out, and actually 2 weeks before tryouts, I got pneumonia when I was up in Maine. So I was literally on the couch, and I had been training for months, like going to the gym, following just like you did, Daniel. They gave me the pre or the summer
Yeah.
training thing as though I would be joining the team, and
Wow.
got to do all of that, and I was really committed to it. And Jess actually tried out as well, and one other girl, and she didn't take any of us. I don't think she was planning on taking any of us.
That's
I think she
crazy.
kind of knew that. She just let us try out. I don't know. And she was like, "You can come back and try out again, like in January if you want. But there's a club team here, and you can go play for them if you want to keep playing." So it was super disappointing. I had, like, I loved it. I loved field hockey. I loved
Mhm.
this, like, just being an athlete. And so it was
Yeah.
super disappointing. And that was probably the first time in my life where I was like, okay, God, like, I trust you. You have a
Mhm.
different plan, and this is painful,
Yeah.
but I trust you in it. And like looking back, I would have never met your dad if I had done that, because I wouldn't have been in town. I wouldn't have had the ability and freedoms that I did to
Wow.
go to the Naval Academy a few months later. So I joined the club team, and Jess and I ended up being the second year. It was the second year, or was it our third year? I can't remember. We ended up coaching it together because we didn't have the school didn't have a coach for us. It was like student led.
Yeah.
So that was a cool leadership experience and a
Yeah,
fun
for
thing
sure.
for she and I to do together. But when I scored those two goals, it was just kind of one of those moments like, all right, like, I don't have to be on the varsity team. And I was really glad at that point that I wasn't. I had no desire to go try out later because I had formed such awesome friendships,
Yeah.
and I was still able to. I think we practiced 3 or 4 times a week. We traveled, select weekends. So I was like, I'm getting that experience. Like, I'm getting to continue playing. I've gotten a great group of friends. It would have been a lot. Um, being on the, as just as the commitment level is intense, and so I was really happy with how it kind of all worked out. But when I did score those goals, I do remember like just running behind the goal and throwing my head back. And it just was kind of like very satisfying.
Dude, what a
And you're
story. That's
like,
sick.
you still got it, like,
Yeah.
that coach might not have taken you, but you're not all that bad.
Yeah.
Like,
Dude.
you should come watch the girls that you didn't take, because just Jen and Christy and I'm like, we were pretty good. Like,
Yeah.
you're missing out, dude.
Oh, dude, that's so awesome.
My
What a
gosh.
story. And that's such a cool like recap because um of the sports story as well as the like friendships and stuff. I feel like
Hmm.
how you were is almost like identical to how me and Tiffany, at least me, especially I've heard from Tiffany. I'm not Tiffany, but from what I've heard from her and what I have experienced myself, it's very similar. And I think it I didn't realize that was not how it was like for a lot of people until I got to like the end of high school and I was with different groups of people and I would like walk with like someone or like I'd be with one group and like the other group wouldn't like associate with like them. I was like I'm literally friends with you guys, like what the heck. So I think it's weird how that happens, but I think it's really cool that you have had that experience. But it is also hard at times too, I think, right? Like at least for me it is because like you're not necessarily just all tapped into one group, but you're able to like you have these connections with a lot of different people
Hmm.
across the different like kind of divides of what each group is like identified by. It's kind of
Hmm.
weird, but I think one thing about you too is that like you have such a great ability to like make people feel welcome. Like every time I'm with you in a like social situation, like I if I like come up to someone like you're with me, I'm like, okay, good. Like at least we'll have like a normal conversation. Like it won't like be awkward. Like if I was to go by myself, I'd be like, oh gosh, like oh no, it's gonna be bad. And I'll just like do my best and whatnot. But like with you, it's just like you have a very natural flow of how you're able to communicate, but not in a way that's just surface level, but that a way that's like um, that's an, deep enough and like they have an authentic way to be genuine with people that like you actually genuinely do care about like the questions you're asking and the questions that you ask actually like are able to help them feel like you care because you actually do. Be able to do that in such a way that like makes the flow of conversation very smooth, and I
Yeah.
really admire that a lot. Something that
Same.
I
Mm.
hope to be able to do one day. Um, and yeah, I just want to say that. But it's super cool because I feel like I can see a little bit of you in me, or a lot of you actually, except for that part. But in me and Tiffany and how like we've interacted with people and stuff. But wow, what a legacy!
Oh, that's really cool. I have to say, one cool thing that happened in college was Jess, my friend Jess. We like grew up very differently. We had very different backgrounds, different beliefs, all that kind of thing. And what I loved about her, and I think I learned a lot from her about, was she was very intentional in asking questions,
Wow.
and it wasn't in a way of like, you're right or I'm right. It was like she genuinely wanted to understand why I thought that way,
Hmm.
or why I believed something, or she was just genuinely curious. And it was really refreshing to
Yeah.
be around someone else that was very different than me, but it wasn't
Yeah.
competitive.
Hmm.
It wasn't weird. It was just like, okay, cool. And why do you think that? Like help me understand.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from that, and I think I like wanted to develop that in myself and
Wow.
do that more. And that was kind of the first time I experienced that was in college. And so I think that is the benefit of college and that time of life is you find people that are like you that you're friends with, and then you can also be around people that are different than you that can sharpen you and change you, make you think,
Yeah.
deepen your
Yeah.
own convictions and thoughts. um, Maybe make them more solid through talking through that through life with
Yeah.
them. And even to this day, like we have very different opinions on a lot of things, but it doesn't hurt our friendship.
Hmm.
It only helps it. Like it's okay, like because we're totally okay with that, and we still value that other person for
Dang.
who they are and what they believe. And it makes you think. Like it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's if you're always around people that are just like you,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't challenge you to think
Yeah.
a little differently outside of the box. And there's a reason why they think that way. And so it's sometimes really fun to explore that.
Dude, imagine if the world was like that, guys. Everyone watching, you should take note of this, okay? This is real knowledge and wisdom right here. This is crazy. But yeah, that's really cool.
Facts.
Imagine like if everyone got to have that experience, how different like our world would be right now, you know?
Yeah.
Dude, so you talked about your mom a little bit in the beginning of this podcast, but how did like how she raised you and who she was impact how you the person you became and how you parent us now?
Yeah, she was incredible. I think, I lost my mom 7 years ago. And when I went to college, she like released me so well for as tight as we were growing up. Um,
Mhm.
and so one of the things, like, you always miss her, but like, there's so many times in the year leading up to you, Daniel, heading off to college where I was like, I really wish I could ask my mom how she did this.
Yeah.
Because she was a great mom. I mean, her background was education. I think she kind of had an understanding of like child psychology and all of that. She was very creative and artsy, so she brought like both of those into how she raised us.
Wow.
It was very hands on and very explorative and fun. And I mean, I feel like I am a lot like her in a lot of ways. Like I
I was about
love
to say.
capturing moments like through photography,
Yeah.
and like she took a gazillion pictures, but it was the same idea of just like wanting to kind of capture
Mm-hmm.
moments. And she was really good. Like she made birthdays a really big deal. Like that's why I've always made birthdays a really big deal. Like it was so exciting to walk out and see the table all decorated and the gifts. And we always did something special on your birthday. Like we'd go to um, the theme parks of New England.
Yeah.
Or the water parks up there, things like that. So it was always a big deal. And holidays, same thing. She was an amazing hostess.
Mhm.
Always wanted things to be meaningful and to create an environment where people could have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that's a lot of that stuff is kind of who I've become, where I do love doing that exact same thing. Like we had somebody over today, and I love thinking through, like, all right, how can we make this a great experience? Like, what can
Wow.
we do so
Yeah.
when this person comes over, it's not awkward and we're just staring at each other talking, but we're like, we're putting flower arrangements together. And so
Yeah.
we're chit chatting and doing that at the same time. Or the food, like I really think through, and people come over the meal, not just the food, but like, is it an interactive meal? Is it an easy meal so that I can be free to do whatever? Like I try to put a lot of thought into
Wow.
like
Yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Events, like I love planning and making things special. Like, you know, parties and celebrations, and that's all my mom. Like that was, she made everything special. She did it with ease, and she was a lot of fun, had a bright smile. And so yeah, so that, and then um I feel like she understood development of kids well, probably because of our background. And so as I kind of grew into different life stages, like I was comfortable when I was dating people, like to have them come to our house and hang out,
Wow, that's so
you
cool.
know, and I don't think that's like normal for all families. I don't
No.
think. So I look back and I was like, okay, it was like, okay for my mom to be around and for them to come and hang at my house. That says a lot. I mean, not to say there's always times when you're like, you know, your mom, your parents do something, you're like, oh, that's my parents. Like, of course, we all have that, right? Like, that's just life. But she never missed a sporting event. She was always the mom with the oranges. I could always hear her voice out there.
Mm.
So she was my number one fan for sure. She came and saw me in college, and that's actually the reason why we have those pictures in that scrapbook page, because she took all those pictures, because I can't take them of myself when I'm out on the field or with my friends. So I have a lot of the memories I have because she was there supporting me, and she was happy
Wow.
to just kind of be in the background but be there and support me. And yeah, I'm trying to remember what your exact question was, but
No, this is
um,
amazing.
I feel like I learned a lot from her, and I've modeled after her in a lot of ways in
Absolutely.
terms of how I've parented and the type of person I am. So yeah.
Wow. Dang. That was amazing. Yeah, that was so good. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, when you were saying all that, it reminds me of you a lot. You just are so good at creating that environment and just
100%.
being so creative, so thoughtful. Back to what Daniel was saying, you're just so good with people and
Oh yeah.
making people feel welcome. All our friends always love you so much, so they
That's oh yeah, 100%. So true.
I love your friends. Like your friends are so fun, and I want to like know who your people are. You know, I want to be involved with them because I care about you and they care about you.
Dude, that's so cool. Yeah, you
yeah.
like even people who like on my team right now, they know who you are like so well just because of the like small interactions you've had with them, but like they're meaningful enough that they left an
Yeah.
impact, you know. And that I think something
Oh,
that is really really cool. So to pivot a little bit into the deeper part of college, like your degree and stuff, you were a
yeah.
nursing major, I'm a nursing major, and now you teach nursing school, so like you're around that still. How has it changed at all from when you were in nursing school or when you were a nurse? And like what are some like big key takeaways from that time and like anything that you really really want to like tell someone that's in nursing school like me right now? So
Okay. Um, it's changed. The training has changed in some ways because, again, of technology. So, you know, we now have these amazing simulations and simulators where there's legit a piece that goes over an actor, and there's a babe, you know, a simulated baby in a machine that is able to come out, you know, and you have the fake blood and you have the urine for catheters. I mean, like the
yeah.
whole thing is there where you can like simulate stuff that we couldn't simulate before. I mean, we practiced on like oranges and bananas and each other. Okay. So I think the mannequins, like we just ordered 12 new mannequins coming to our floor, and so like you
Wow.
see the change in technology from, every 5 or 10 years when they get new equipment or whatever. So you're able to kind of see that. So the training gets more accurate. I mean, just the skin on the mannequins,
Mm,
how it improves from time to time, um, gets better and better and more realistic.
mm,
So that's one of the benefits. We actually just got or are getting one of the big screen tables that I know your nursing department has too, where it takes the human body and you can like it's this big like kitchen table, and you
wow.
can take it apart and see underneath it and really understand how it all fits together. So it's a great learning technology piece, and so that is something that's very different. Um, I think nursing has shifted a lot because of all of the demands of
Mm,
insurance and money and the business aspect.
mm,
And so many nurses are discouraged. And so as like a nurse educator now,
mm,
I think there's two things that we really strive to do. One is we've seen the effects of COVID. So, one really specific thing was I teach health assessment, how to do a full head to toe assessment on a person. So important. You can catch so many things.
oh yeah.
And I actually have a fellow coworker who she like was a big part of the beginning of this program because she failed to do a full assessment and she
Mm,
missed someone on someone's lung sounds, and that person ended up not surviving because of
wow.
it. And so we are teaching all these skills to the kids, and they're coming to us. I know they're not kids, these young adults, they're coming to us and saying, I don't understand. I've never, like when I'm in the hospital, I've never seen a nurse do that. And what
Mm,
we're finding is during COVID, there was all the masking and the gloving and the gowning, and so they thinned out the requirements. So
mm,
like you were just going in and doing the bare minimum in those rooms, and I didn't experience that personally, but I'm hearing from people that's what happened. And so
yeah.
they stopped listening fully, looking thoroughly, touching everywhere that we teach them where to touch and how to touch a person, how to feel for things, how to listen for things, how to
Yeah.
look for things thoroughly. And so I think
Mm,
now it's kind of maintained that bare bones
Mm.
um, quality. And then, so we're trying to say, don't be the nurses that you're seeing.
yeah.
Be what you know is right. Take what you've learned and then create your own system. But just because you don't see other people doing it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And this is why, kind of
Absolutely.
explaining that. I always try to really explain the why behind what you're doing and give them some life examples that I experienced of, this is why this is important.
Mm,
And then they're like, oh, it makes sense. But if you're just doing it to do it, it's like, you're just checking off a checklist,
yeah.
right? But if you understand why you're doing it or what you could be preventing or what you could be finding, it brings value to it. And then I think the other part of it is just like I was saying, there's so many rules and regulations, and the time that you can
Mm,
spend with the patients is less, because
mm,
the staffing, a lot of nurses have left, and so they're understaffed, and so patient care has just plummeted. So, trying to be a part of putting out good quality nurses
there you
back
go.
out there because we need that.
It's real.
They're the
Yeah.
people that are doing the hands and the feet work of the medical world, and a mistake that they make can be tragic, and also what they do can save a life.
Mm,
And it's important to have good people out there.
wow. That's so true. It's definitely discouraging though too, a little bit. Like,
Hmm.
and I think that's part of why I wanted to do it. I think I was also talking to another guy today too about like there's a lot of people that are nurses right now, and he was saying like when he works at the hospital already as like a transporter that like don't want to be there at all. Like they're just nasty. There's a jerk to other coworkers, and they're very rude, and
Hmm.
they're because they went into it thinking that it would be something that it wasn't, or going into it to be able to progress to get like one of the higher paying jobs, and they never made it, so they're just like disgruntled because of the pay, or they just don't like the work, or a bunch of other things. But they like just are just having bad attitudes and not doing a good job. And like he was saying, I would not want to have care from these people. So like, coming in and giving the good care can change the trajectory just a little bit, to back to where it should be,
Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, you're
it's crazy.
absolutely right. I think because now there's a shortage, they're paying nurses well in certain areas, like really well. And that's drawing people just for the money because they're like, oh, I can get a degree how quickly and then be making that.
Yeah.
And they're doing it for the wrong reasons. And so I definitely see some students like that who, want to progress a certain way and don't necessarily want to do the dirty work. And if you want to be a nurse, like you're hands on,
Hmm.
like you're in there, you're doing those things. And so I agree. There's people that get into it for the wrong motives and then they don't like what they're doing. And it's like you can tell.
Ugh, terrible. I can't imagine having to go to hospital and get care for these people. It's
Hmm.
terrible. We gotta change that.
Well,
Ah,
you're going to change that.
that's facts, bro. This is the beginning of a new era.
Yeah. Back
Um,
to when you were talking about the like interactions with people.
yeah.
I feel like that's something that I did not do when I was your age. Like I
Hmm.
was probably just more like self-conscious, not good about like asking questions and speaking my mind or just feeling comfortable in my own skin. And I
Hmm.
feel like that's something that I've learned. And so now, like, I kind of more have the mentality of like, what is there to lose? Like, why
Hmm.
not say, like, when I saw a bunch of Belmont girls and I'm waiting in line in the bathroom, like, I could just stand here and be quiet, but
Hmm.
that's boring for everybody. And it's a little awkward because I have Belmont gear on. So like, why not say something, you
Yeah,
know?
that's
And
true.
so I'm kind of like, not like, okay, if they think I'm weird, they think I'm weird. But like, I'd rather like be friendly because I've also learned that there's people who, when you're quiet and like less interactive, you often come across as like snobby
Mm.
or, uh, I don't know, like, yeah, snobby, I guess is the best word.
Mm.
So, like, a really good friend of mine, she's not that way at all. But when I first met her, she was not very interactive. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's like, thinks she's so great and
Mm.
like didn't want to interact. And so I guess I've just learned that you can come across a way that you don't intend at all
Mhm.
by being quiet. And I think I tended to be on the quiet side. And so, like, I've pushed myself to like interact and
Mm.
to be like conscious of how I come across
Mm.
because I don't want to come across as snobby. And so like I try to like I think about how
Mm.
I present and I also am like not so self-conscious anymore in the sense of the value of like reaching out when you break down that wall and you interact
Yeah.
like say something to someone, then all of a sudden it's like
Yeah.
and you're in a conversation and it's not weird anymore. So it just sometimes that like icebreaker is
Mm.
like the hard first step and then
Yeah.
somebody's got to do it. And
Mm.
like I'm like, I guess I'm getting older, I should be the one to do it, right? Like I shouldn't expect someone else to break the ice here.
That's
So
true.
just like trying to be a little bit bolder and
Mm.
but then when you do, it's so fun. Like that's how you meet people, you make connections and
Mm.
create friendships and it's fun.
Wow. Some good advice right there, guys. Holy. This is stuff that, yeah, I need to do right now. That's crazy. Oh. So, as you like transitioned from being a college student to like an actual adult, did it feel any different? Like, I know it had to because you have a job, right? But like, then you obviously got married and then you had like me and then you had Tiffany. Like, was there ever a point when you were like, oh, like I'm actually an adult now? Or like, did it all just kind of happen so naturally that, like, oh, I'm a parent now? Like, yeah, of course I have Daniel.
I was actually gonna
Like
ask about this
what a
too.
cool little kid he is, Like, what happened? Like, did it just like happen? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
Because you
Um,
go from being a high schooler like me, then you become a college student,
yeah.
then you met dad when you were Daniel's age,
Yep.
yeah.
and then you finished college, you got married, and then all of a sudden you're a parent, and then like then you just like your life just goes on, and it's like, do you ever get old? Like, what is a concept of old? Like, who's old? Because
Yeah.
then once you're old, there's always someone older, and then like our life ends here,
Yeah.
you know? So like,
Mhm.
is there? We actually had a Socratic seminar kind of on this topic this year of like,
Oh, dude, that'd
what
be
does
so
it
hype.
mean to like get old? Like,
Yeah.
do you ever become mature? Do you ever like grow up? Like, it was on a book, and it was like, did this person like grow up, and what does it mean to grow up? So like, yeah,
Mm.
that's kind of such
Mhm.
a weird thought.
Yeah. So I think my first core memory from that time was I graduated from college. You know, my parents were there, my brother and sister-in-law were there. Um, the Russos were there, and all the celebration happened. Joshua was there, his family was there.
Wow.
It was really great. And it ends, and I literally like pack everything that I owned in one car. And I remember looking at the car, and it was really weighed down, and it was like the muffler was literally sitting, like the back of the car was over the curb when I packed it, but then it kept getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And so then I was like, oh my gosh, I have to drive away, and like my muffler's like resting on this curb. Like, do I just do it? Like, do I just gun
Yeah.
it and like let the sparks happen and drive away? Or what do I do here exactly? Or do I unpack everything, move the car up a foot and repack it, you
Oh,
know? And
that's
I
so
just drove
funny.
away, guys.
Yeah.
Like, just drove
Full
away.
send. Yeah.
But like, it was a moment. I'm like, my whole life is in one car.
Yeah.
And that was
Wow.
kind of crazy. And then just like drove down to Florida. I had gotten a job during we got engaged in December, and I got a job ahead of time before graduating because I knew I wanted to do pediatrics, and I
Mm.
knew Joshua, my fiance of the time, was stationed in Florida, though he was deployed.
Mm.
So I knew I was going to go down there, and so I was just pretty aggressive at the children's hospital. Like, I want to work on this floor,
Hmm.
and was able to get a day shift job. I was really
Wow.
fortunate
That's crazy. Yeah.
that December before even graduating, and so, but I had no place to live, so I legit just like drove to Florida by myself with everything I owned. Josh was deployed, and one of the guys he was deployed with had a fiance,
Okay.
and she was willing to let me crash at her house or her apartment for a few nights. So I did that, and I literally drove my car that I probably couldn't have seen anything out of the back window to apartment complex, asking, do you have any availability? Until I
Wow.
found one that I could move in that week.
That's crazy.
And so,
Sheesh.
I mean, I think I stayed with her like 3 nights, which I was like, thank you so much. This is amazing. And then, signed my first lease,
Mm.
did all of that all by myself,
Crazy.
unloaded, and had my own first little apartment in Florida. And then I start this job, and like you get your first paycheck, and you're like,
Mm.
I'm rich. I've never gotten some like a paycheck like that before when you
Yeah.
scoop ice cream in the summer.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Or you're a waitress, like, when you get like $2 an hour as a waitress, right? So then you get like $16 an hour, and you're like, oh yeah.
That's so
And
funny.
and then, but I will say, like, my life did move very fast. So like
Okay.
it was high school, college. I was super busy in college doing nursing and like field hockey and the other stuff I was involved in. And then like literally graduate, start my next job. We get married in November, and then like we're there for a few years, and then we start moving. And so we moved to
Yeah.
Pensacola, we moved to Ohio,
Mm.
have our first kid, moved to Seattle, have our second kid. Like, life moved really fast.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So like looking back, it was just like it was just happening.
Yeah.
And I was really fortunate. Like, I was able, like, God put the person for me in my life, and it was pretty clear.
Yeah.
And I got to have two amazing kids, and I've always wanted to be a mom. Like, when I was a little kid, that is like what I did. Like, you guys played Legos, I pretended to be a mom. Like I would pretend I was pregnant, and then I also wanted to be in the medical field, so I would like play by myself, and I would like pretend I was the mom sometimes and walk around the house with my hand on my belly and was, gonna have this baby, and then I would pretend to be the doctor and I'd give birth, pretend, and I would like give birth as the doctor. And so like it was my dream to have kids. And
Wow.
so like when I actually had like a real live baby, like I literally asked Santa for a baby. I wanted a baby so bad. And
Oh
I remember
no.
asking Santa, and then I was like, how, like I'm trying to figure out, like, is
If
this going to happen? I was like, could I fit under the couch to watch? Because if he leaves a baby and the baby's like there all night, and Santa brought like this really real looking baby doll, and I
oh.
loved it, but it was just so disappointing because I wanted a real
Oh.
one. I wanted a real one so bad.
Oh. Oh, dude. Oh, trauma.
Oh.
So, like, like when I was given that gift to be both of your mom, it was incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mm.
So it was like a dream come true. I was living a dream. Like I had so much. Like I
Wow.
just felt super, super blessed.
Hmm.
Wait, you haven't talked about, or maybe I just don't know, but like you finding out that you were pregnant with us.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't really heard that story.
Okay. So for Daniel, we were living in Pensacola. We had actually just gotten to Pensacola. So, yeah, we had gotten to Pensacola. We didn't even have all of our shipment of our goods. So we literally like had a mattress on the
Mm.
floor, and we had Nella, our dog at the time, and
Heck
she would
yeah.
kind of like burrow and stuff in the bed, and we'd play with her, all that kind of thing. But we had just gotten to Pensacola, and I kind of had a feeling maybe I could be pregnant. And so dad and I went to, I don't know if it was Target or Walmart. I think it was a Target. And we left our the house we were living in on base. And by the time we drove like the 10 minutes to Target, I had to go to the bathroom so bad. And I was like, I must be pregnant. Like, because that's a sign of pregnancy. Your uterus is starting to grow, and it's kind of right there on the bladder. And so
Mhm.
early signs, that's one of them. And so I like literally like went and got one of the kits. And then the next morning, peed on the stick and it said positive. So then I was like, okay, I'm in the middle of Pensacola. I don't know anybody here. Like, what do I do?
Hmm.
And so, crazy story. You guys probably don't even know this. So, one of my teachers from high school, I loved her. She was actually one of my music teachers, and I think she taught something else too.
Hmm.
Her name was Mrs. Royapa. And like she, when I was in high school, had I think her third child, and I had gone to her baby shower and everything. She's probably a lot like Mrs. Hyman to you, like someone I really like. She went to my church growing up,
Hmm.
and so like I just thought she was so beautiful, and like just I really admired her.
Hmm.
So I had somehow known that she was in that area, and so I reached out to her,
Hmm.
and so she was the first person I told. I hadn't told like my mom or anyone. I said, I think I'm pregnant. I don't know what to do. Like, who is your like OB doctor? Can you help me? And
Aw.
so she like gave me the name, and then I was able to call and got an appointment like a week or two later. Dad and I went in, and they did the ultrasound that showed this little tiny peanut that had this little heartbeat. And so we then we did a surprise. So Grandma Kraus was visiting right around that time,
Wow.
and so I don't know. Let's see what. Trying to remember exactly what it was, but we put that ultrasound picture in a card for her. So when she opened it up, she saw the ultrasound picture.
Aw.
And then I think I mailed it to my mom as well. And
Uh,
then like had her open
Just
it on the phone,
imagine
something like
grandma.
that.
That'd be
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. But it was really funny because like right when we were moving, I remember just being like super emotional, and like dad and I like kind of getting in a little bit of a disagreement about like the mug. He said something about I never liked the how those mugs were stacked in the cabinet, and I was like, what else have you never liked, and just like totally overreacted, but it was totally hormonal. Like I was pregnant, I didn't know it.
Wow.
And so it was just really funny. And then it was really interesting. So with each of you, I think with Daniel, I could not stand the smell of like steak, but then or eat it. But with Tiffany, it was chicken.
Hmm.
And so it was like I was like really averse to it. But yeah, so with Tiffany, we were in Seattle, and so that was super fun because when we found out we were pregnant with you, Tiffany, we had shirts made for Daniel. Okay, so a little shirt, and he was really into trains at the
Mm.
time. And so it had a little choo-choo train, and it said, I have a secret dot 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 on the
Yes, I
front.
remember that.
Yep. And
Yes.
on the back, it said, I'm going to be a big brother.
Oh, that's
So
so
that
hype.
is how we told everybody about Tiffany's arrival. So like we, with Johnny and Jill, I want to say we did like a Zoom type thing. I don't know what it was called back then. Gosh, what was it
Like
called?
Skype or something.
Skype or something like that. Yeah, with them. And so then we had like Tiffany get on, or I'm sorry, we had Daniel get on the computer and be like, oh, you should show him your shirt. And so then, like proud little Daniel would come up and show his shirt and then turned around and said that. And so we use that shirt every time to show the
That's
grandparents and
awesome.
everybody that Tiffany was on the way. And
Mm.
then Tiffany, I just showed you this picture, but when we got to go to the ultrasound with you, Daniel got to go. And it was really fun because it looked like you were like waving or that you were
Aw.
doing like a thumbs up. It looked like you were doing a thumbs up. So then Daniel had a picture with like, he got to see the ultrasound and he gave a thumbs up.
Wow.
So that was really fun to do that. And then Daniel, you obviously remember, then you got to go to the Big Brother class at
Oh
the
yeah.
hospital,
Oh yeah.
learn all about how to be a big brother
Hmm.
and learn how to change a diaper and what not to do to a baby and
Hmm.
things you could do to be helpful. And so that was really fun to do that together to welcome Tiffany. And both of you guys were surprises. So we didn't know in terms of gender.
Mm.
We chose not to find out if it was a boy or girl for either one of you. So I had a shirt that I often wore that said not finding out. And I loved being pregnant. It was so fun. I'll still remember how you guys you'd get hiccups a lot. And so my belly would just boop 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 boop, especially when I'd lay down at night, you guys would get hiccups and my
That's
whole
so
belly
funny.
would bounce. Yeah.
So you mentioned when you were in Pensacola how when all that happened, like you didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So, obviously you've moved
Mhm.
multiple times.
Mm.
Can you speak to just like plugging in with people and how you were able to just get connected and get friends and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think that actually moving around was a way that I grew quickly in terms of learning how to make friends because if you're stationed somewhere for 2 or 3 years, if it takes you 6 months to get acclimated somewhere, and then at the year and a half mark you're like already got your orders for the next place, you're starting to check out, right, and think about your next place that you're going. And so if you don't get plugged in those first 4 to 6 months, like it's really tough, because you're already then thinking about the next place you're going. And so like I learned very quickly, being that Navy wife, during those moves, on like the importance of finding community quickly, and also that like okay, so here's a funny story. So I had some really good friends when I lived in Ohio. Great group of girlfriends. We just did life together. One of them, crazy enough, went to my high school. She was like 3 years older than me. Played field hockey. So this is what happened. I'm literally at church in the middle of Ohio. Okay, I grew up in Massachusetts, and I look over and I'm like, that girl looks like a girl that went to my high school, but she was maybe 4 years older than me. She was a lot older than me, 4 or 5 years older than me. And I was like,
Okay.
I swear that's her. And I don't know anything that was said in the sermon because I was working up the courage the whole sermon. Should I go and say something to her? And I was like, if it's not her, that's going to be really embarrassing. If it's her, like she was definitely way old, like her younger brother was like 2 years older than me. And so like in eighth grade, I was playing on varsity, but like she, I think was a senior that year. So she was like one of those people that like, does she even know who I am?
Yeah.
And like I looked up to her, but I was like, I swear that's Chrissy Sharp. And so I worked up the courage. Okay, so this is the difference. Like now I would have just run across the room and been like, hey, are you Chrissy? But like back then I had to like pump myself up that you really should do this, because if you lose this opportunity, like you might not ever have it, right?
Yeah.
So I remember going over, walking across and being nervous. And I was like, are you Chrissy Sharp? She was like, yeah. Are you Michelle Wacker? I was like, yeah. We're like, are we both in Ohio and we're now married to military guys? Like, what? So long story short, we became good friends, and there's a couple other Candace and a couple other people that we just we're all kind of young married wives and newly married into the military world, and one older lady that kind of invested in us and cared for us. So anyways, they had this core group, loved them. We felt like sisters because like you do holidays together, you do birthday, whatever it is, like you join life together.
Yeah.
And I remember moving to Seattle, and I remember looking for them there, like physically looking for those same people. It sounds bizarre, but I was like, I would just kind of look around the room and I'm like, my people aren't here. And I realized I was looking for them and they weren't there. And nobody that I saw did I think were like my people. And I knew I needed community. I wanted community. I had just you at that time, but I was like, I need friends. Like we need people to play with. Like, you need support. Like I'm across the country from anybody that I know. Like I know nobody out here. And I was praying about it, and I just couldn't like connect with anybody, but I kept showing up at places and going to things and events, and I plugged into Bible study fellowship, and we were, in like the large group setting, and I was sitting by myself, and I was actually newly pregnant with Tiffany, but I wasn't showing or anything at that point. I was just, I knew I was pregnant, but nobody else did. And I looked down the pew, and there was a lady sitting down at the other end of the pew, and she was eating this little bar. And I was like, oh, I've seen those bars, because it was like these like Nutri-Grain bars that some company would send out. Like once you go to your first OB appointment, you get on like a mailing list. And so they send you out like, Ensure for pregnant women and bars for pregnant women. And, they're trying to
like
market
they're any different.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I was like, oh, that's one of those like healthy mama bars. I was like, she must be pregnant. And so, but again, she didn't look pregnant. And so I sat there like, should I say something? Should I not say something? Like, what should I do? And didn't pay attention to what was going on. And so then I like nervously like slid down at the end. I was like, hey, are you pregnant? Okay, like who does that to someone? I was like, I saw you're eating a bar. Okay, that's Stephanie, my best friend.
Wow.
Okay, so if I hadn't gotten over myself and just slid down and been a little awkward and been like, I noticed you're eating a pregnant woman bar. I'm pregnant. Do you want to be my friend? And like we hit it off, and then we literally had our babies a month apart.
Wow.
Like Grace was due in April. She delivered. I went and saw her at the hospital, and like 4 weeks later, Tiffany was born.
Wow.
And there was another mom there that we got to know that was pregnant. So the three of us were all pregnant together. So I think that kind of is like full circle to kind of what we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, but just like as you're doing life, like just not living with no regrets, in the sense that you're willing to step out, even if you feel a little awkward, and take that first step, because that first step might be your best friend later on. And like, she was a lot older than me. She didn't look like my friends in Ohio. I realized I was physically looking
Yeah.
for them. Like, it sounds so bizarre. And then she became my absolute best friend.
What a story.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's some crazy wisdom right there too. Wow.
Wait, what was the question you even asked me? I got
It was
so
like
like,
transitioning, right? From like
Yeah.
moving around and stuff. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like, so in Jacksonville, we would, the guys would be deployed, and we were friends with the Cassidys then, really good friends with the Cassidys. And like when Rob was deployed, Josh was home, or vice versa. And so we would have each other over for holidays. In the middle of the night, when she had a mouse in her house, we literally came over, put combat boots on, and like fought and found the mouse. Like, you figure out, like, you don't have family support nearby,
Mm-hmm.
and you develop community, and you just have fun with it.
Yeah.
So it made it, you learn how to plug in quickly when you are in that type of quick turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it served me well long term.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Well, thank you so much for all your incredible wisdom. I think we're gonna have to do a part 2 after this because this was
I
so
think so,
good.
too.
I'm not even gonna lie. Like, that was so good. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Mom. I appreciate it.
You guys have really great questions, and it's so fun. Like, I realize we've just been talking for like an hour, and I probably should have found a way to synthesize what I said.
No.
No.
There's no way to synthesize that stuff, bro.
So
No.
fun. Thanks for being so curious. You guys are going to go so far because you are curious, and you ask great questions. You care about other people, and you take the time to like process life with other people and care. And that'll go a long way.
Well, we learned it from the best, so
That's
thanks
facts.
for being on.
Love
We love
being with
you.
you. Love you.
All right, talk to you later, Mom. Bye, Tiffany. I'll see you
All
guys
right.
later. Everyone on the
Thanks
podcast.
for tuning in.
See you next time. Peace.
Peace.